The classic description of a UFO occupant remains consistent: bipedal, oxygen-breathing, 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. The anatomy is eerily similar to our own. Standard evolutionary theory presents a significant hurdle for the extraterrestrial hypothesis. A completely independent biological lineage, developing under alien gravity and atmospheric pressure, faces overwhelming statistical odds against arriving at this exact humanoid blueprint. Biological anthropologist Dr. Michael P. Masters proposes a formal scientific framework to address this biological overlap. He calls it the Extratempestrial Model. This model identifies UAP occupants as our own descendants, returning from the deep human future. Masters constructs this hypothesis using 3 pillars of science: evolutionary anatomy, theoretical physics, and anthropological motivation. Applying scientific parsimony to the UAP mystery requires a shift in our baseline investigation.
The evidence suggests we stop asking where these entities come from and focus instead on when. Hominin evolution has followed a distinct, measurable trajectory for millions of years. As our ancestors adapted, the facial skeleton steadily reduced in size, while the brain case expanded to accommodate a growing brain. This frontal view of an early hominin skull illustrates the starting point of that trend. Note the heavy brow and large dentition. In profile, the same fossil reveals a protruding lower face, supporting a massive jaw, while the neurocranium slopes sharply backward. This physiological shift is driven by pedomorphosis, or neoteny. This biological process involves the evolutionary retention of juvenile, childlike features into adulthood. Plotting hominin craniometric data reveals a clear inverse relationship. As facial mass trends downward, relative brain size curves sharply upward. Extrapolating this trend into the future, the cranium becomes the dominant feature, while the face shrinks into a minimal, flat profile. This projection necessitates other physical changes. A smaller jaw means smaller teeth. High-tech environments reduce body hair, while olfactory and auditory structures atrophy. The resulting form is bipedal, hairless, large-brained, and small-faced. This future projection aligns precisely with descriptions of gray entities provided by thousands of independent witnesses. Modern human behavior likely accelerates this. A heavy reliance on complex digital interfaces theoretically selects for larger eyes and a dominant prefrontal cortex. The alien form is the predictable result of human biological math played out across a vast timeline. Identifying these entities as our biological descendants requires a physical mechanism for them to reach our current era. The left panel maps the extraterrestrial hypothesis variables. Interstellar travel demands overcoming light-year distances and prohibitive mass energy requirements. The right panel illustrates localized temporal transit. Instead of a linear trajectory across deep space, this model utilizes a stationary, looped metric. Albert Einstein provided the mathematical foundation for this concept in his 1915 general theory of relativity. Under general relativity, the manipulation of extreme mass energy or intense rotational velocities can theoretically bend spacetime into what physicists call closed time-like curves. These curves function as localized loops, allowing an object to move backward across the landscape of time without violating the core laws of physics. The disc-shaped craft frequently seen in UAP reports fits this relativistic framework. A smooth, metallic object spinning at extreme rotational velocity would create the exact effect of warping the atmosphere and bending light. These craft function as localized temporal displacement devices, the very tools required to generate closed time-like curves. Bending a local pocket of spacetime to slide through time is mathematically more parsimonious than attempting to traverse the physical galaxy via faster-than-light travel. Even if temporal transit is possible, the question of motivation remains. Why would advanced future humans risk the journey to interact with us? Viewed as anthropologists, the answer is clear. Future humans would naturally return to study their own hominin past, just as we study our primate ancestors today. However, abduction reports consistently highlight a darker behavioral motif, a singular clinical focus on reproductive biology and gamete extraction. The timeline theory explains this behavior, positing that the human lineage eventually fractures into divergent paths following catastrophic events. The withering branch represents a severe genetic bottleneck, where future progeny face biological instability and the loss of emotion as the limbic system atrophies. This context redefines the abduction phenomenon as a survival strategy, replacing the assumption of random extraterrestrial experimentation with a mission of desperate necessity. Under this model, future humans extract modern human DNA to supplement and repair a failing, homogenized gene pool in their own timeline. Our era is a primary target because modern humanity represents the last highly diverse and biologically viable version of the species before the future bottleneck occurs. This explains the detached, clinical lack of empathy often reported during encounters. As selective pressure drove the expansion of the prefrontal cortex for advanced analytical thought, the biological structures governing complex emotion and traditional morality appear to have atrophied. The abduction phenomenon represents a systematic operation of temporal resource extraction executed by our own descendants. The Extratempestrial Model aligns biological evolution, relativistic physics, and behavioral data into a single framework. This model relies entirely on terrestrial data and the logical projection of human technology, requiring zero extraterrestrial variables to explain the mystery. Elevating this to a formal scientific hypothesis removes the stigma that has traditionally kept UAP research on the fringe of academia. Solving this mystery requires multidisciplinary cooperation, bringing together anthropologists, theoretical physicists, and biologists to analyze anomalous data through a unified lens. We cannot casually dismiss this compelling evidence, simply because it deeply challenges our current evolutionary or temporal paradigms. Rigorous scientific openness suggests that our observations of UAPs reveal a mirror of the distant human future.